It was a Thursday when it finally got to me. I was working late, reviewing blueprints for a downtown renovation project, when I heard the unmistakable beep of the front door, the spare card again. I didn't even bother looking up. I knew who it was. Derek, you who? Your favorite uninvited guest is here. He called out in that obnoxious stage voice he used even when no one was watching. Footsteps echoed down the hall. Then he appeared in the kitchen like he owned the place, dropping his coat on the bar stool I always used. Got any beer, or is this still an oat milk household? My name is Aaron. I'm 39, an architect, and I live in a converted loft in Brooklyn with my girlfriend Lena. At least, I thought I did. Lately, it felt more like I was just renting space from her and Derek. Derek was Lena's platonic soulmate, whatever that meant. A theater director who wore scarves in July and once compared himself to Orson Welles, unironically. Lena adored him, said they had a bond that transcended romance. Whatever it was, it transcended common courtesy too, because the man treated our home like a green room. That night, I cleared my throat as he rifled through the fridge. Hey, Derek, listen, I think we need to set some kind of heads-up rule before you come over. Just shoot me or Lena a text first, okay? He froze, holding a bottle of kombucha, turned slowly like I'd just asked him to vacate the premises. Wow, he said, flat and theatrical. Do I make you uncomfortable in your own home, Aaron? Is my presence that oppressive? I didn't answer, just looked back down at my drawings. But the silence between us thickened like concrete. Later that night, Lena came home, buzzing with energy from a client dinner. I barely got 2 words in before she said, "Okay, what happened? Derek said you were cold, that you want him to call ahead like he's a delivery guy or something. I asked him to text. That's all." "Yeah, well, he said you made him feel stifled." I closed my eyes. "You made him feel unwelcome in his own second home, Aaron. You know how rare it is for him to feel safe with people?" It was always about Derek's feelings. Then she said the thing I never thought she'd actually say. "You owe him an apology." I turned to look at her. And not just to him, to Yvonne too. I already told them we'd come by Saturday. For what? A proper apology. In person. In front of both of them. And just like that, the trap was set. It was 9 months ago, on a night I never should have been at that gala. The firm Lena worked for had rented out an entire floor of some glass and steel nightmare in Midtown for a fundraising event. The kind of thing where everyone pretends they care about indie theater while secretly checking their followers during the speeches. I had planned to bow out, but Lena insisted I go with Derek. She called it guys' night, said we needed to bond. So there I was, 2 whiskeys deep, stuck in a corner booth with Derek, who decided the evening was about him, as usual. He wasn't even drinking like a normal person. He was performing it, swirling his glass dramatically, sighing between sips like an overworked Hamlet. His cufflinks were undone, his tie was off-center, and his volume was just loud enough to draw attention from nearby tables. "Do you know what it's like," he said, slurring slightly, "to be trapped in a performance you wrote for yourself?" I blinked. "Marriage, Aaron. That's what I'm talking about. My marriage. It's just blocking rehearsal at this point." I nodded slowly, tried to look sympathetic, but I was already halfway checked out, my eyes on the exit. He kept going. "Yvonne used to be this elegant little enigma, you know? And now she's just practical. God, it's like sleeping next to a spreadsheet." I said nothing. Then he leaned in, dropping his voice like we were in a spy thriller. "I've been seeing someone." My stomach twisted. I didn't want to know, but Derek wasn't asking. "She's 23, stagehand from the Syracuse production. Completely electric. No pretense. Just raw passion. You'd love her." "I wouldn't," I said automatically. He laughed like I'd told a joke. "Don't worry. It's not serious. It's just necessary." He said that word like it justified everything. "She thinks I'm a genius," he added. "Yvonne doesn't even come to opening nights anymore. But this girl? She waits backstage like I'm goddamn Sondheim." Then came the part that stuck with me. He looked me dead in the eye, suddenly serious. "This doesn't leave this table. You get that, right? I'm trusting you." I nodded, not because I wanted to, but because I saw no benefit in becoming part of the wreckage. I figured, not my war. The next morning, he called, panicked, mumbled something about being too drunk. Didn't mean to say all that. Hoped I was cool enough to forget. I told him sure, and I did forget, or tried to, until now. Now Lena was dragging me into some humiliating apology tour, turning my reasonable boundary into a character flaw. And Derek? He got to play the wounded genius. Again. But here's the thing. He trusted me because he thought I was harmless, invisible, safe. He thought I'd stay quiet forever. But I wasn't going to the apology to be forgiven. I was going to make sure Yvonne heard the truth from me. And this time, I wasn't keeping secrets for anyone. "You have to really mean it, Aaron," Lena said, crossing her arms and pacing in front of me like a brand manager coaching a reluctant CEO through a PR crisis. "It's not just about words. It's about tone, warmth, humility." I nodded as if I cared. We were in our living room. She had printed out a bullet-pointed script, actual bullet points, and handed it to me with all the enthusiasm of someone managing damage control for a brand she secretly hated. "Start with how much you admire Derek. That's key," she said. "Talk about his creativity, his mentorship, his generosity." "Generosity," I echoed flatly. She didn't catch the sarcasm. "Then," she continued, "own your insecurities. Say something like, I've struggled with jealousy because I didn't understand the bond you two share, but I see now that I was projecting. I stared at her. You want me to say I was projecting? She gave me a sharp look. You were. You made it about control when Derek was just being himself. I nodded again, robotically. Right, Derek, just being himself. She beamed. Exactly. See, this is going to be good for us. I didn't say anything, just stared at the paper in my hand. Praise, confession, submission, the blueprint of manipulation. That night, after she went to bed, I opened my laptop, found Yvonne's old email from when she'd sent out Derek's holiday party invitation last year. I wrote, Hi Yvonne, hope you're well. Lena mentioned we'll be swinging by Saturday to clear the air with Derek, and I just wanted to make sure you'd be around too. Would love for all of us to be there. It means a lot. Looking forward to seeing you. Aaron. It was simple, disarming, warm, the kind of tone that said, I come in peace, while laying the first stone in a perfectly measured ambush. She replied an hour later. Of course, I'll make sure I'm home. Thanks for the heads up, smiley face. And just like that, my audience was confirmed. I spent the next 2 days rehearsing with Lena. She stood across from me like a stage mom, correcting my tone, asking me to soften my posture, round out the edges of my sentences. I said grateful when I really meant furious. I said jealousy when I really meant disgust. I said thank you when I wanted to say wake up. Every word was a prop, every breath a cue. By Friday night, I had the whole monologue memorized. But the real performance wasn't for Lena or Derek. It was for Yvonne. And when I walked into that brownstone tomorrow, I wasn't going to apologize. I was going to detonate. The brownstone was exactly what I expected, tastefully pretentious. Brick facade, clean black shutters, a front stoop that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Lena was glowing beside me as we walked up, dressed like she was headed to a magazine shoot. I could feel the smugness rolling off her in waves. This is going to be good for everyone, she said under her breath, brushing invisible lint off my shoulder. I nodded like a groom walking to his own execution. Derek opened the door before we could even knock. Of course. Well, he said, smiling wide, spreading his arms like a game show host. The prodigal roommate returns. Lena giggled and leaned in for a hug. I didn't. Inside, the place was dim and moody, the kind of lighting that says, I'm mysterious, but I also have a housekeeper. Yvonne appeared from the kitchen with a tray of glasses, dressed in her usual understated silk and grace. If she had any idea what tonight would become, she didn't show it. White or red? She asked gently. White's perfect, I said, smiling. Lena gave me a little nod, the kind you give a kid before a piano recital. Whenever you're ready. I stood, heart steady, walked to the middle of the room and turned toward Derek. He slouched on the leather armchair like royalty slumming it. Derek, I began, I want to thank you for giving me the space to speak, and I want to start by saying that I deeply admire you. He raised an eyebrow, satisfied. Lena folded her arms, already proud of herself. You've always been generous, passionate, fearless, and I haven't always known how to handle that energy, especially in my home. Yvonne tilted her head slightly. I let my discomfort become a wall. I let it interfere with Lena's connection to you, and that was wrong. I recognize now that my actions were rooted in insecurity, in jealousy, even. You two share something rare. And instead of respecting that, I reacted with control. Derek's chest puffed. Lena beamed. The applause was coming. They could feel it. I took a breath, let it sit, then slowly dropped to one knee. Gasps. Lena's hand flew to her chest. Derek looked startled, flattered, but I didn't look at him. I turned to Yvonne. My real apology, I said softly, is to you. The room went still. I stood up slowly and looked her directly in the eye. I've carried a secret for 9 months. One I never should have been told. One I never should have kept. But I kept it. Out of decency. Out of neutrality. Out of fear. Yvonne blinked, her wine glass trembling slightly. Your husband, I said clearly, has been having an affair with a stagehand for over a year. Lena's jaw dropped. Derek's face went slack. And I'm sorry, I told Yvonne. Not just for what he did, but for protecting him, for staying silent when I should have stood beside you. Nobody moved. The silence was loud, charged. Derek looked like he'd just been shot through the chest. Yvonne didn't blink. Lena was frozen in time. And then I sat back down, calm, straight-backed, hands folded in my lap. Show's over. The silence held for a full 5 seconds. It doesn't sound like much, 5 seconds, but in that room, it stretched like a funeral procession. Then Lena broke it. You're lying, she spat. You're lying to humiliate him. Because you're petty and insecure and... Lena, Derek said, voice low. Stop. He looked like he'd just been pulled underwater, pale, wide-eyed, gasping for footing. Yvonne still hadn't moved. Her glass was frozen halfway to her lips, her face drained of color. Lena turned on Derek. You're not actually letting him say that. Tell her he's lying. Derek opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Then he tried again. Yvonne. She held up one hand. Quiet, elegant, final. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my phone. I figured this would happen, I said, calm as ever. I scrolled for a second, then held it out to Yvonne. This is from 9 months ago. A text from Derek, right after the gala. She took the phone. Her fingers trembled. The message read, Look, I was too drunk. I never should have said anything about the stagehand. Please, just forget it happened. Please. Yvonne read it once. Then again. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Lena lunged at me. You are a coward. You waited all this time just to drop this bomb? For what? Because you're threatened by Derek? Because you can't stand how much I love him? Because you dragged me here, I said, staring right at her. Because you made me kneel. Derek looked like a statue now, his eyes locked on the floor. He hadn't said a word to defend himself. Yvonne slowly handed me back the phone. She stood up, set her wine glass on the credenza, and walked out of the room without looking at anyone. Lena started after her, but I blocked the way. Let her go. You don't get to do that, she hissed. You don't get to hijack someone's home and blow it all up. No, I said quietly. But you do. You just didn't expect me to fight back. I walked past her, past Derek, past the crumbling performance, and let myself out the front door. The air outside was sharp and clean, like the first breath after being underwater. I got in the car, pulled away, and never looked back. By the time I got home, my phone had started buzzing. Text after text. Lena, Derek, Lena again. All ignored. I blocked both of them before I even took off my shoes. Then I opened my group chat, the one Lena's friends had used last month to criticize me for sulking about Derek's energy. I sent the screenshot of the affair confession. No comment, no context, just facts. Not one reply came, not a single word, which, honestly, said everything. By the time I woke up the next morning, Lena had texted 12 times and called 4. The first few messages were all rage. You humiliated me. You humiliated him. You're disgusting. This was your plan the whole time. You're seriously a psychopath, Aaron. By lunch, her tone had shifted. I think we should talk. You're not seeing this clearly. Let's not throw everything away. I didn't answer. Not once. I left her on read. The truth doesn't need a back and forth. By the second day, I got an email from Yvonne. Hi, Aaron. I just wanted to say thank you. I didn't want to believe it, but I found the hotel invoices and the texts on his iPad. You didn't lie. You just let it sit until you couldn't anymore. I filed for separation this morning. You did the right thing. Yvonne. I stared at the email for a while. No dramatics. No passive aggression. Just grace. Even in heartbreak, she moved with quiet dignity, the kind Lena and Derek only performed on social media. That evening, I stopped by the apartment to grab some files from my office drawer. Lena was still there. Of course she was, still pretending nothing had changed. Except now, the music was on full blast, some awful techno loop bouncing off the walls. She didn't say a word as I walked past, just raised the volume. I ignored her and left. That's how it started, the sabotage. Over the next week, she tried every petty tactic in the book. She started leaving my work clothes on the floor, accidentally deleting emails from my shared inbox, blasting music when I was on Zoom calls, and once, leaving spoiled milk in the fridge just to make the place stink. It was the behavior of someone drowning and clawing at anything nearby. But I didn't react. I didn't yell. I didn't scold. I simply documented everything. Timestamps, photos, screenshots, all sent to my lawyer. 3 days later, she was served with a formal notice. Vacate within 30 days or face legal action. That night, she cornered me in the kitchen. You really went to a lawyer? She hissed. I am done asking nicely, I said. You made this unlivable. I'm protecting myself. Oh, please, she snapped. You love playing the victim. I stared at her, genuinely baffled. You're still defending him? She blinked, just once, then turned away. She never answered the question, just slammed the cabinet and stormed into the bedroom. But her silence told me everything. They always thought I'd roll over. They thought quiet meant weak, but quiet can also mean calculating. So I stayed silent, stayed calm, let the documentation do the talking. And brick by brick, I built the path to get my life back, while Lena and Derek watched theirs burn from inside the house they built on lies. It was the night before her move-out deadline. I hadn't seen much of her the past few days. We'd been doing this passive cohabitation routine, like two ghosts haunting the same house, avoiding eye contact, speaking only when forced. I came home around 9, expecting silence. Instead, I heard the front door click shut just as I stepped out of the elevator. She was in the hallway, dragging one of my monitors down the stairs, wrapped in a throw blanket, like she was doing me a favor. I didn't even raise my voice. Put it back. She froze, then turned, her face flushed and tight. I bought this for the home office, she said, gripping the screen like a lifeline. It's shared property. No, it's not. I stepped down the stairs, calm, deliberate. It was purchased on my card, delivered to my name, and logged in my expense records. Would you like to see the receipt? I held up my phone. Already pulled up, already highlighted. She opened her mouth, but no words came. You're not taking anything that's mine, I said flatly. Not one cord, not one adapter. This doesn't have to be ugly, but it will be thorough. She looked at the monitor again like she might argue. Then, quietly, she set it down on the second step and turned to head back inside. I didn't follow her. I just stood there, waiting, listening as she re-entered the apartment and slammed her door. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. The next morning, she was gone. No note, no text, just a stack of boxes she'd left behind, mostly junk, an old space heater, a chipped coffee mug she used for her matcha, a few shoeboxes of promotional crap from her PR firm. I changed the locks that afternoon, hired a cleaner the next day, opened the windows, let the stale air leave with the memory of her. No screaming, no final blowout, just facts like always. She tried to take what didn't belong to her, and I didn't let her. That was it. No drama. No parting speech. Just peace. The kind that comes when you finally reclaim something you didn't realize you lost. Your space, your time, yourself. I sat down on my own couch, in my own apartment, and I didn't hear a single footstep that wasn't mine. And God, it was quiet. 6 months later, I could breathe again. The apartment was still quiet, still clean, still mine. No late-night slamming of cabinets. No blaring music at 7 a.m. Just the soft hum of the fridge and the ticking of the wall clock above my drafting table. My work had improved. I was more focused, more inventive. Projects that once felt like a grind now came together smoothly. I started sleeping better. No more waking up with a pit in my stomach. No more bracing for conflict before my feet even hit the floor. The quiet wasn't lonely. It was sacred. Lena had moved back in with her parents in Westchester. She was working at some junior PR agency now. No client-facing role, just copy edits and social media captions. I heard she'd tried to blame me for ruining her personal brand, but no one bought it. Not after the screenshots made the rounds. Not after people saw the truth. As for Derek, he went dark. Yvonne had filed for divorce 2 weeks after the dinner. She kept the house. He lost his grant funding for a regional production after a few quiet calls were made. The girl he cheated with left town. Rumor was he was couch surfing in Astoria, pitching a one-man show nobody wanted. I didn't gloat. I just didn't interfere anymore. That was the real revenge. Then one Sunday in June, I got an email from Yvonne. Just a short line. Coffee next week? I'd like to catch up, if you're open to it. I said yes. We met at a little bakery near Prospect Park. She looked different, lighter somehow. No makeup, hair loose, dressed simple, beautiful, but not curated. Just human. We talked for 2 hours. Not about Derek. Not much, anyway. Mostly we talked about books, her work, my latest project, the things we each had to unlearn after years spent in rooms where manipulation passed as love. I used to think keeping things quiet was the noble choice, she said, stirring her tea. Turns out silence just protects the wrong people. I nodded. I kept a lot in because I didn't want to rock the boat. Then I realized I wasn't even on the boat. I was under it. We both laughed. Real laughter, not polite filler. At the end, she asked if I wanted to do this again sometime. Nothing loaded, just a question between two people who'd survived the same storm. I said yes. I'm not saying we fell in love. Not yet. Maybe never. But there was something there. Something gentle and unforced, built on brutal honesty instead of illusion. As I walked home, I thought about that night in Derek's living room. The script I'd been forced to memorize. The kneeling. The humiliation. Funny how being made to beg gave me back control. I didn't destroy their lives. I just stopped protecting their lies. And finally, I was free.